way. I might say, nobody doing it better. Y'all some lightweights. Malik Wright, up all day and all night, pushing all the buttons up to something till it's alright. He looking at it from all sides and angles. Got a stripes on his body like he played for the Bengals. Oh man, there's no one discussing it. They came, they stayed, they either did it or done it. Man, I love it, cause all they ever do is win. So kick back, relax, the TWSN.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Sit Down Malik Wright Recap Bengals show. I'm your host, Malik Wright. I'll be joined by Zim Hude on the show as we break down all things Cincinnati Bengals and everything that happened in today's game. Before we do us a favor, give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or when we upload content from the TWSN studios. Dan, I believe we have Zim in the back office, so let's get Zim in here right now so we can have the conversation. What's going on, Zim?
What's going on? I like that. The back office. It sounds prestigious. It sounds like I actually have a purpose being here, because after a loss like that, I don't know what the hell's going on.
You definitely have a purpose, brother. I think it's fair to say that this season has been a lost season for the Bengals, especially when you consider that the expectations were going into the year. But I have a message for the fan base, man. I see a lot of people turning on each other, and I see a lot of people looking for people to place blame. I had someone go at me because I placed a parlay that I won, essentially. And I just want to be very clear about this. None of us that cover the team, none of us that cover the team from afar or cover the team actually on site control what happens in Cincinnati. Let's just start there. If you're looking for someone to blame for the debacle in Cincinnati, look no further than ownership, front office, and some of the miscues or missteps that have happened over the course of the last couple of off seasons, is what I will say. Don't use this opportunity to implode on one another. Don't use the opportunity to be pissed at people who commentate on the team, who give their take or their opinion and try to give honest coverage of this team, is what I will say. A lot of bad happened in that Pittsburgh Steelers game. Some good happened in the Pittsburgh Steelers game. But all in all, a lot of bad happened in that game. And, I know a lot of people look at me and they say, hey, you're a Lou apologist, or you're this, or you're that. Well, I'm a realist. I believe that everybody should get the opportunity to have a fair shake. And if there are things that are happening that are bad, I'll call it out. Things that happen are good, I'll call it out. Here's what I will say. While I do believe Lou is a good defensive coordinator, in my honest opinion, I just realize that, if your defense is allow Russell Wilson to have 400 yards on it, but the optics say that it isn't a good showing. It isn't a good result, to be honest with you. But to be fair, I also don't know if there's any defensive coordinator that would come in and make the necessary changes with the current talent that we have. I think that the organization as a whole needs to look at the defense and make it a priority in the offseason. And if you don't believe me, the Bengals had a defensive coordinator that was honestly the worst defensive coordinator I've ever seen in the National Football League in Terrell Austin. He now has the third-ranked defense in football, and Joe Burrow also threw all over his defense today. So let that be a tip of the hat to tell you, you can have the best defensive coordinator. You can have a guy that can coordinate the defense properly, but if you don't have the talent to do so, it could look like this. Everybody from near to afar that saw this team could tell you that the Bengals were missing a pass rusher. The Bengals were missing a true number one corner. And now we're acting as if we're shocked when the results have been what they've been. I'm a realist at the end of the day. I'm also not going to be a guy that's fooled by garbage time touchdowns or garbage time yardage and look at that and say our offense did amazing. To me, I think that there's so much that goes into the blame game that we're placing, but I think first and foremost, it starts at the top. It starts at the organization level. And if they're serious about winning, it doesn't matter who the defensive coordinator is. Hell, it might not even matter who the head coach is. but they need to do everything in their power to make sure they're putting a winning football team on the football field. Zim, I've said a lot here, man. I'm sorry I opened with my long monologue, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to give your opinion of the loss of the Pittsburgh Steelers as well as the outlook for the remainder of the season. Because make no mistake about it, Zim and I will still be here after every game, right? Because football doesn't stop. Me and Daniel will still be here after every single game because football doesn't stop, and we'll continue to break the game down. We'll continue to look at prospects and potential free agent targets that could make sense to get the Bengals back to where they need to be. Zim, the floor is yours, brother.
I don't really know where to begin. I'm a solutions guy. I'm not a blame guy. I just think, we said this before a couple of weeks ago. I like Lou. I think that Lou has a formula for beating, or matching up against the Chiefs. He has different things that have worked. I think the front office hasn't shown him any favors. And one thing, well, kind of, and that's part of what I'm about to say. They've given him a good amount of draft picks. They've given him free agent talent. They've given him a bunch of things. This is the worst Bengals defense I've ever seen outside of the Terrell Austin defense, right? To me, those two are right now where they're at or where they've been. It's really bad. I'm surprised in the Giants game it looked the way that it did in the game that we saw. Me just seeing them today, I feel like if it were a close game, I think it would have just gave Najee Harris an opportunity to run for 300 yards. You know what I mean? It just turned into a shootout. The way that it is, this is how I look at accountability. I don't really care about pressers and stuff like that and what people say. I think so many people, and I think that's a social media conversation. You ever notice in this day and age on social media, people hang on to every little detail and try to scrutinize a sentence and be like, I got you, right? And sometimes Zach says stuff at the podium. Sometimes you hear different reports and they'd be like, that's it? That's all you're going to give me? I don't really care about that part because it's all lip service and it's all part of a PR. You have to say things calculated in front of a microphone. The true measure of accountability for me is results driven. So when I look at what Lou has done throughout this season, let's just look at just this season and Pollock and all the other guys, right? Consistently, they're telling you that there are guys that they rather play in spite of the younger guys all over and over again. Von Bell all season. You don't even see Meta today in a game where Logan Wilson isn't playing. I feel like Pratt struggled. They're not playing any of the young guys in none of these spots. Geno Stone, he said, I went out, I stood on the table for him or whatever, and I got this guy or whatever, and remember a week ago, he said, I thought Geno Stone played his best game as a pro against the Chargers. And then anybody with two eyes can see that Geno Stone played probably his worst game. Or I don't know, he's got so many bad ones. Accountability is not coming to the press conference the following day or a presser the following week and saying, that's on me. Accountability to me doesn't work that way. It works on if I'm going to go out on a limb and say that these are my guys, then if we lose, then I need to be able to take the losses or I need to be able to go with them. So when people talk about an overhaul, talk about guys need to be fired and different things like that, if I'm Lou, at this point, I'm pretty sure I think the situation's just run. I think the message and everything that's gone over, all the people that he did have this lock hold on, the Eli Apples of the world and all these people that he made better, the Wooziers that he made better. Mike Hilton's now getting targeted and coverage, all these different things that he's done. All those things are now out the window. And everything that he's done throughout the season has led us up to this moment. And if people are talking about guys should be benched and these guys then Lou should be going hand in hand with that conversation. Because if you're not going to play Myles Murphy and you're going to say, I'm going to go with Sam Hubbard, as much as I saw Sam Hubbard today, then you got to be willing to take the consequences with it. And to me, that is real accountability. I don't care. People say, did you see the press conference with Joe Burrow? I don't care, bro. Because the conversations that they're going to have behind the scenes, they're way more intense than whatever they're showing you at a press conference, right? And so the results of this, to me, in my mind, just sum it up. Tomorrow morning, I think Lou should be gone. And I think at the end of the season, I will move on from Zach Taylor as well. And to me, that's just a whole accumulation, me taking my intel, taking my information all season. Remember, I've never said fire this guy, but if you're going to lose in the standard is set that the Bengals cannot miss the playoffs, and you're now 4-8, and you've been stubborn and said that these are all my guys, I'm going to play my guys, then you got to be willing to take the losses with them, and you got to be able to take the consequences that go with it. And that's the simplest way I can put it.
I think that was so beautifully put by you, my man. And I want to dive a little deeper into this talk because I have gotten the tag that you're that I'm a huge like Lou guy and all this kind of stuff like that. First of all, everything that Zim said there is real, right? It's real. It's, you know, if I'm questioning things, I'm questioning the usage of Myles Murphy. I'm questioning, you know, the limited reps that he did get. He looked promising. He looked like he showed some flash. He looked like he showed something different, especially with him being a first-round pick. You want to be able to see what that guy has. You know, why didn't we turn to Jordan Battle a lot sooner? Maybe you know, and this was a game-saving. I mean, I'm sorry, a game-saving. I'm sorry, a season-saving game that was so important, right? And I look at it and I say, you know, the optics don't look great because I could defend, but you got to be able to change something up, do something a little bit different to hope for positive changes. But here's a fact that I kind of want to get to. You know, when Lou first took over as the defensive coordinator of Cincinnati, you had Preston Brown, you had guys like that out there, and it wasn't good, right? The fact of the matter in today's day and age of the NFL, unless you're a Super Bowl winning or you have a top 5 defense, you don't get the opportunity to remake your defense twice. Hear me out here. You do not get the opportunity to remake your defense twice in the National Football League unless you've either won a Super Bowl or you finish top 5. You don't get that opportunity. And so if you don't get the opportunity, right, because Luke could go to the front office and say, hey, you know, I need my guys. And maybe he was advocating for that throughout this entire time for his own people. And from my understanding, it wasn't always given to him. But the optics say when you have a season like this and you have a quarterback like that and you have a receiver like that, well, somebody has to be the fall guy. And it doesn't help with your offense putting up 38 points and your defense allowing 40 points to an offense that has been average at best all season.
Hadn't scored it since 2018.
Yeah. So that's what the optics say. And I'm going to tell you right now, I believe he's going to go on if they were to move on from him, and he will be a good defensive coordinator somewhere else. I believe that. I believe he will go on. He will get a front office that is willing to work with him, that is willing to grow with him, that is willing to give him the assets that he needs. But I want to make sure that I'm crystal clear with what I'm about to say. If you move on from Lou Anarumo, what defensive coordinator is coming in here and is going to want to hitch their wagon to Zach Taylor when a lot of people believe that guy can't take Cincinnati over the hump? And that's the real question we're going to be having, because ideally, if you're moving on from a defensive coordinator in Lou Anarumo and you're trying to grab a defensive coordinator to pair him with Zach Taylor, don't you think that defensive coordinator will want his own guys in? And let me tell you something right now, unless the organization is willing to change their stripes and overhaul and do something different, right? Don't you think that it's probably going to take more than just a season to get their guys in here, right? So when we talk about firing a guy and we bring in a new defensive coordinator, for instance, well, that guy's going to want his own team in here. He's going to want his own players in here. And that vision is going to take time. It took Lou 2 years to get his guys playing to a championship level where they were more of a turnover-prone defense. So whatever defensive coordinator coming here, they might want to rip it all up. They might not want a Jordan Battle. They might not want a Myles Murphy. Again, that's the NFL. That's the price of it. Unless the Brown family and Duke Tobin and Zach, whoever, they say, hey, you need to work with the guys that we have in the building. Well, if that's the case, those same guys that you're telling them that they need to work with, don't be shocked that the same results are what they are. is what I'm saying, which is why Zim and I have been an advocate that if you move on from Lou, you probably should move off of Zach as well to get a whole different change of philosophy
Absolutely.
here. And sure, it might look like you're tearing it up to a degree, but at least you're putting your team in a position where you're saying, hey, we need to do something different. That's my thought process.
Don't you feel like somebody asked me? I tweeted this out and it got a lot of traction. I said, "Yeah, I think Lou will be gone tomorrow, and then I think Zach will be there in the season." People were like, "Well, why would you do Zach the end of the season? Why wouldn't you do that tomorrow?" You got to understand the front office. We don't know the details of the contract. People dispute that. Does he have 2 years left on it, whatever? Mm-hmm. I just think that if you're going to say that no way that this front office is going to move on from Zach, you got to understand the function that they would do it in. To me, it will be the end of the season. And Joe Burrow said this at the press conference of, I want to see changes and stuff, right?
Yes,
and he also said, we're going to find out in the next 5 weeks, like who's going to be with us and who's not. And to me, that could be the head coach as well. And I think the writing's already on the wall to me for him, because to me, the standard is you have to go to the playoffs with a healthy Joe Burrow and a healthy Jamar. I'm very cut and dry with that. And I think everybody adds like their own little spice to it. I'm like, well, look, healthy Joe Burrow, healthy Jamar Chase. There's nobody in this comment section that projected that those two will go to season healthy. Remember, before the season, is Joe Burrow going to stay healthy? And as long as he's healthy, Bengals are a Super Bowl contender. Don't think about where they're at 4-7. Think about what you said prior to the season. So even if you're like a Zach Taylor apologist, I don't think there's that many of them out there anyway. But even if you are, you got to understand that the standard was bare minimum. The floor with Joe Burrow healthy is that you go to the playoffs. And I think for the next 5 weeks, the only thing in the 1% I could see that Zach Taylor would stay would be that the Bengals win out, which is not happening. And the team plays like their heads on fire and stuff, but they had all those opportunities to do that. They had that in the Chargers game. They had that in the Eagles game. They had that in the Ravens game. They had all these opportunities for the defense and the team to collectively come together and play like that. And now that you're at this point, it's just now it's put up or shut up time for me. Like I'm all that talking about like, well, this is what we're going to have a real conversation. It's going to be really fun for me because I have some very, very, very controversial takes on what the Bengals should do on defense coming up. I really do.
Well, I want to get into that. I
know people are not going to like this. Yeah. That's why I said that. But
and before we do, make sure you guys do us a favor. Give this video a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel so you guys never miss when we go live. We're live every single day, except for Saturdays. We bring you guys coverage all throughout the week of the Bengals, of the NFL, UFC, NBA, and so much more. But listen, man, I'm there with you, man. It's gonna look it has to look drastically different. And I thought what Joe Burrow was saying in his interview was so poignant. He talked about how this season won't be our legacy. Essentially, it will not be the franchise cornerstone pieces' legacy. We're gonna see how we could bounce back and how we can utilize this moving forward. And you look at it, man. I think that I think when you look at it and you're seeing how this season has played out, it is unfortunate, but it's very deep as to what led us to this point. It's very deep, I think, and I think when you look at it, it isn't. It really isn't because it isn't just because somebody's a bad defensive coordinator or the ball just didn't bounce our way. I think the ability to lose consecutive close games is a nod to coaching, right? And a look at situation management. Marvin Lewis said something years ago in his last press conference in Cincinnati. He said, you can change coaches all you want, but at some point the players got to play. And that has stuck with me. That's one of the most profound things I've heard a coach say. And it has never been more true because you can look to change so much, but at some point the players do have to play. And, while I'm saying the players have to play, you have to look at the people who are bringing said players in here, right? That's why you have to look at Duke Tobin. I don't think anybody in our front office should feel safe. I don't think anybody in our front office should feel comfortable. Just like I could tell you right now, you look at the loss of guys like Cam Sample early in the season, there was nothing done to replace those guys. The loss of Dax Hill, there was nothing done to replace that guy. Xavier Howard was brought in here for a workout visit, and there was a rumor that was floated out there that he asked for a 3-year deal. He never asked for a 3-year deal. The Bengals just chose and opted not to sign him. That's what happened. He had a great workout, looked great. They opted not to sign him. That's the facts of what happened. So there's been little done to also help the defense. But again, I'm not that guy to say, hey, you know, you weren't just given all the help that you needed, because at some point the numbers are going to play a role. Like when we look back at this Bengals team in history, we're not going to look at the fact that Dax Hill was injured. We're not going to look at the fact that Cam Sample was injured. We're going to look at the fact that the Bengals defense allowed Russell Wilson to throw 400 yards against them, and the Pittsburgh Steelers offense to roll. Daniel, I want to get you into the conversation. You've been kind of quiet over there. I want to get your thoughts on everything.
So I guess I'll stick with the defense. I think the part that's frustrating is, and I think, we discussed this in the past, it really is just looking at the players. And I'll point to two things. First off, the 2021 and the 2022 or 2022 and 2023 NFL draft, you drafted 4 defensive players in the first 2 rounds. Obviously, DJ Turner got hurt. Obviously, Dax Hill got hurt. A front office and a team cannot afford to miss on picks. And missing on picks doesn't mean they're not talented. It means, what are they doing on the football field? And I think that's where my frustration goes to, is seeing Myles Murphy here. And we talked about this before on the past couple shows. It's the same thing. The Jermaine Burtons of the world. Like, there is no reason why these dudes should be finally getting first reps in these games. And that's the part where it sucks to say, but we're at a point where Lou Anarumo, like we discussed, his job may be done, and it may not all be his fault. So I think that's where my mind really goes to. And then the other portion is looking at the offense side. The narrative that is spewed right now on social media by these accounts, ML, football, all these accounts saying, hey, the Bengals have lost all these games, but Joe Burrow's putting up these numbers. Let's also talk about the offensive failures. And this is where I don't know where to point the blame, but like when we talk about the offensive failures, Kansas City, Joe Burrow fumbled, recovered for a touchdown. Washington, you were 2-4 in the red zone. And you obviously lost because of the defense, but you were 2-4 in the red zone. Your offense couldn't score a touchdown. Baltimore, you had a 10-point lead. Baltimore, you blew a 21-7 lead. This game, 2 turnovers in the second half, and the Chargers game, you missed 2 field goals. You're 1-7 in 1-score games. That's not all on Lou Anarumo. So, and that same thing, that's not all on Duke Tobin, but that's what it comes down to. The Kansas City Chiefs are a team. They're the standard right now. They've won, 10 to 15 1-score games consecutively. And the Bengals are 1-7 in 1-score games. So I say all that to say, I don't necessarily know where to put that blame, but it's not all on the defense. It's situational football. And that's what this team, they've got to figure it out. And that's why what you guys both said, I'm with you. I think this team is too far gone. This season is too far gone to run it back next year. And I think you can tell with what Joe Burrow said, Zim, I think I agree with you. The Zach Taylor thing, I'm not firing him now, but at 4-8, I just struggle to see you bringing him back. And I hope the fans can see that.
Don't you feel like people, Daniel, don't you feel like people are just like, they're going to give him this leash? And I'm like, you never seen a joke. Like, are we just so young and so like, the Bengal fan I'm telling you about? I know that person's in the comment section today, but they're like, you must be new here. We're going to keep, but you must be new here. We've never had a Joe Burrow. I don't care. Boomer Esiason, shout out to you. Shout out to Carson. Shout out to Dog. Shout out to all you. You've never seen anybody with the social media engagement, popularity, or whatever anywhere near Joe Burrow. The amount of pressure that it puts on your front office is very different. And I don't know if people are smelling that. Like, do you know how many people, like, think about it. We're 4-8, but think those aggregate accounts that you're talking about, the fact that they're actually talking about us.
Yep.
Think about you think like from even our social media team from the Bengals or whatever, if y'all notice, they haven't really posted that much because every comment section is just, you're failing Burrow. You're failing him over and over again. I don't think people that like you've never seen, nobody 50 and up that's about to tell me that the Bengals, they're not going to do anything. You told me that when they signed DJ Reader. You told me that when they spent $100 million the last all season when they signed Joe Burrow, Orlando Brown, and all them. You told me that they weren't going to do none of that stuff. You've never seen a Joe Burrow, bro.
And just to add on to that, I think, and this is where like I appreciate just being on the show too, because we've got the actual chance to influence fans' opinions, and we've got the chance to kind of show, yeah, you got Joe Burrow. I like the hat you got going on there. We got the chance to actually help this conversation. I think the one thing too, the Bengals have never shelled out, and obviously they didn't pay Jamar yet. They've never shelled out $400 million to 2 players, and hopefully once they pay Jamar, that's going to be the reality. So I think that's something where they paid Carson. I don't know what his biggest contract. I doubt it was over 100 million, right? And maybe if it was, maybe it was barely over 100 million, but $400 million to 2 players, that hurts the front office pocket. So I think we would be remiss if we didn't entertain that the Bengals would let go of coaches because of how much of a failure this season is.
Well, I think there's a lot of pull to what has happened in years past, to your point, right? And I think that to Zim's point, you've never had the talent of a Joe Burrow, talent of a Jamar Chase. One thing's for sure, those guys aren't going to settle for what the norm has been in Cincinnati. They seem pissed. They talked about the fact that changes are necessary, changes are needed. Even the beat writers are kind of shocked by some of the comments Joe Burrow made today. He said changes definitely need to happen. A lot of changes, a lot of big changes need to happen. So you have to ask yourself, is the quarterback talking about players? Nah, I don't think he's talking about players. I mean, sure, he's talking about you need to obviously add talent, but I think things need to change as a whole, how you deal as an organization. I said this a couple weeks back, and I'll say it again. I think Cincinnati is facing one of the most interesting off seasons we've ever seen. Genuinely, I think the Bengals are in for one of the most interesting off seasons we've ever seen. And I don't think it just starts with the players on the locker room. I don't think it just stops with some of the position coaches and the coaching staff. And I think it can get all the way up to the front office. I think you are in need of a new movement in how this look. Hell, maybe the guy that if they were to move on from Zach and they hired a head coach, maybe that head coach would take on GM responsibilities as well. I think something drastic is coming to Cincinnati. And I think that because the pressure is so high for guys like Joe Burrow, for guys like Jamar Chase, the want to win for this city, especially with these contracts coming into the fold, you have to look at it and say changes are coming. The fact of the matter is the Bengals got punched in the mouth by Russell Wilson and the Pittsburgh Steelers. They got punched in the mouth by Lamar Jackson, the Baltimore Ravens. So many games this season you could look at and you say this was supposed to be the Bengals' time to take over as that team in the AFC. This was supposed to be the Bengals' time to really take that next step. And it feels like they've plateaued under Zach Taylor. Ask yourself this question before I let Zim go. What coach with a quarterback playing like Joe Burrow's playing, like a wide receiver playing like Jamar Chase is playing, has gone to the Super Bowl with this team, has put together a 4-win season thus far, has then been able to bounce back and lead this team to the promised land? You let me know. What coach has been able to survive? Because this isn't just like, oh, they missed the playoffs,
right?
By, winning 9 games. They just, they just missed. This isn't that. That's the narrative people are missing. This is a colossal fuck up.
Yeah.
No matter which way we slice it. What coach, ask yourself this, what coach would survive that? Ask yourself in any profession, if you ran a store and you were the general manager of a sales store, right? And you had your store go, finish in some of the top 2 stores in all the country out of a bunch of locations, let's say 32 locations. What coach, what GM would survive then the following year finishing in the bottom half? That guy would be out of there. It'd be like, what the hell happened with that store? Why are the numbers so low? Why are the sales so low? You could translate this to any profession. How do you go from that to this and survive? How does the message carry out? How do you get the players up to play? This isn't just a Lou thing. This is a Zach thing. This is a Marion Hobby thing. This is a pitcher thing because he's a part of the process. This is a Duke Tobin thing. You know, I'm being honest. Changes are needed. Wholesale changes are needed. And guess what? It doesn't take someone being inside that building each and every single day to see it. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see it. The fact that you miss the playoffs with a healthy Joe Burrow, with a 4th place schedule, and then some of y'all think Zach should survive this season? How?
How
could that possibly be? How could you ever get the players up to believe in that guy? Even though you're going to swap those players out. If he was the coach that a lot of us had hoped he would be, and that Lou would be, and that all these guys would be, we wouldn't be in this predicament.
Can I? Your point, and Daniel, I want to go back to what Daniel was saying, because he was in a spot that I've been walking on eggshells on Twitter with. Right? It's a crazy thing, and both of your conversations kind of lead into each other. On one end, every game, people look at the totality of the game. Like I saw a stupid tweet from Shannon Sharp, right? That was like, Joe Burrow didn't play well today. You sound stupid. Like he did play well, right? But you got to factor in a lot of different things. So Daniel, he did it the right way. I learned this. You can't say Joe Burrow's name. You can't. Because then people say, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like everybody's so like protective of, you know what I mean? And I feel like that's how everybody in the building kind of is too. Like if he needs a coach, honestly, that will probably challenge a lot of different things and come to the podium and say, you know what, like we got to block better up front. And call out different things. We got to I think Joe Burrow needs somebody that's super accountable up front, because what happens is all of these games he walks out of and everybody's like, you can't say nothing bad about him. I think that all of our conversations go hand in hand. Me, I'm a lover of football. Like, so when I watch a football game, I start off a drive. Like if the Bengals have the ball and I say, we need to go score 7 points, right? What happens is, say we don't score 7 points. People then afterwards say, oh, you're not blaming this on Joe Burrow. I'm like, no, but I'm looking at every single play. If you want to win, you can't just skip plays. And how did Joe Burrow fumble today? I thought the pressure was in his face too much. I thought that, in hindsight, you could say, hold the ball a little, tuck it a little bit further. Daniel was talking about the Chiefs game and all this. Like, no, it's a whole thing. And I really feel like it probably starts at the front office and you could go get way better talent and all these different things. But like I said, I'm a solutions guy. I think a coaching staff that would say, you can't lose the football right there. I know Zach did say you can't lose the turnover battle or whatever, but like you can't lose the football. Like when we were up on the Chiefs in that game, like in the totality of it all, and I know I'm not saying this clear enough because you got to be very careful with this or they'll turn on you. But in the Chiefs game, if you don't fumble in that game, I do feel like the Bengals win that game. That's not placing blame. That's just pointing out a football play. If you're also the same person can say in the totality of it all, if you had a better defense, if you had all these different things, you wouldn't even be in that spot. I thought the defense played really good in the Chiefs game, so I don't know if they would use that. But my point is the coach in itself has to be able to get everybody on point and have everybody accountable. Like I can't watch football every week and I'm just saying that, like, oh, we didn't score right there. I didn't see that. Like, I didn't see that there's a guy wide open, like Joe missed the throw. Like, if you point that out, they'll be like, bro, are you trying to blame it on Joe Burrow? I'm like, no, I'm not blaming it on Joe Burrow. I feel like it starts at the top. Something's not going on coaching-wise that's closing out these games. Something's not going on up front that's not closing out these games. Something on the defensive side of the ball, when they do get stops, like the Ravens game, they had like 4 or 5 stops. They don't come back and close out people. Like even today, the game was 27-21. Defense was horrible. So the real argument would be, people will be like, well, why does Joe have to be perfect in the game? It's not that he has to be perfect in the game, But if you're telling me that he's the best quarterback in the National Football League, then he needs to have an offensive line that can protect him long enough, or wide receivers and all these different things. If you keep on saying he needs this, and he needs this, is he really the best quarterback in the NFL? So to me, I feel like Joe Burrow is overcoming a lot, and he hides a lot of your flaws. You see what I'm saying?
Actually, I want to dive into that. And Danny, I want your take on this. Here's
I
my take.
feel like he's hiding like a lot of our flaws and stuff like that.
Yeah, I do believe that. But here's my issue, and this speaks to the front office situation. You know, it's very clear you chose offense over defense. It's very clear that you said we're an offensive-driven team. But being an offensive-driven team and saying you're dedicated to making this offense tick goes deeper than just paying skill position players. You also have to change the philosophy on the interior offensive line position, right? That means that you have to really go. You think about what the Chiefs did when it came to Mahomes. They spent over $100 million in one offseason on the offensive line to fix it. And they said, our defense is middle of the road. We'll fix our defense over time via draft picks and bargain deals as we can. But they went really in on the offensive line, and they won a Super Bowl off of that because they saw how bad it looked. They saw how bad it looked during the Super Bowl when Mahomes was playing. And that's my thought process. If you're going to go all in on one position group, actually go all in on that position group. Don't just forsake certain spots and say, hey, we're going to go really in on the skill position players. We'll add depth at wide receiver. We'll add depth at tight end, but we won't go all in on the offensive line as a whole. Because if the offense, in order for the offense to tick the way we're expecting it to tick, you need a fortress, on the offensive line. And for me, that's why I felt like the philosophy just didn't always make sense, because there's always that give and take as it stands with the offensive line. And Sean, I think you're missing the point Zim is making. He's not blaming Joe Burrow. Nobody's blaming Joe Burrow. He's simply pointing out a fact that, guess what? Nobody is above criticism. You need a coach in here that's going to be willing to call out those. Zach Taylor has never called out Joe Burrow once in the years he's been here in Cincinnati. He says, well, Joe understands Joe understands, what he was seeing there on that play.
And somebody said, I read a comment that said, well, I just don't see the part about pointing out like as good as he played, right? I could go with a stat line and say he had 300 yards today, 3 touchdowns. F it, he's on my fantasy football team. I know he cooked, right? But check this out. You said you don't see the point of pointing out these small different details. These small details, we've been doing that for the defense every single week, like every single point, like every little part, right? And then when the defense does put you in a position like to go and win a game in a game like Chargers and it goes 27-27, you said, I don't see why we would point out every little detail. That's a problem. See, when you win and you want to win, you have to. You see what I'm saying? Like nothing can go past that. You can't just lose a game. Like I watched Josh Allen a week ago or whatever, right? I don't think he's better than Joe Burrow. I think he probably has a better team than him right now, right? The game is tied up, same circumstance. He then takes the ball into his own hands. It's a 4th down. He goes, runs, trucks a guy, flips over a guy, goes in the end zone, wins the game, closes him out, right? At that moment, that's what winning football is about in those moments. It's not about what did he get in the stat box or whatever. And again, this is just having a conversation about the totality of a team. Right. But if you're always going to come back to at the end of the game, if we lose a game and there's a late pick, a late fumble, and say, well, it doesn't matter if he scored 400 points. 400 yards and had all these points. Can you think about how silly this would sound? Mike Hilton has played such a great season all year. The pick 6 that he dropped last week or whatever in the Chargers game, or him getting cooked in this game, I don't care about those plays, bro. He's played such a good season. I'm not even going to look at those plays. Do y'all see the contrast and the parallels of those arguments? You can't say that you want to win and then skip over what you want to look at and what you don't. And if you're going to say, instead of, I like Daniel saying offense, don't even say Joe Burrow's name because you're not allowed to say his name in Bengals Twitter or whatever. Don't say his name, but let's say the offense. If the offense has these chances to go get it, and you're looking at, I could go through all the games. The Bengals offense had the ball with 1 36 seconds at the end of the Patriots game, week 1. 3 and out. They go to the Chiefs game, week 2. They're up 2 scores. Their offense fumbles late in the game, gives them an opportunity. They get 4 plays. They give the ball back to the Chiefs, and then the Chiefs 4th and 16 us. You could go back and say, yes, the whole season the offense is cooked. Yes, the defense is a top 5. But what good does that do you when the Bengals have lost? What'd you say, 1 and 7 in one-score games?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not willing to look at every little detail, then you're going to lose. Like that's how you win those games. You have to go look at it and look at every single detail. And if the coach isn't doing that, then you need to find you a coach that does. If you don't want to even mention Burrow having a turnover or anything like that today, that's fine with me. I don't care about that. Figure out a way to tell me how we're going to win a close game. If it's just going to be every single week, it's the defense selling. And then when the defense does get you on a spot and they do make a stop, you're going to run out of those excuses after a while. Like, you're going to then have to go point to somebody, right? It's going to have to be the offense in its totality. What's the most important position? And you could look at all of these different things, and it's nothing to do with Joe Burrow. It's nothing to do with Joe Burrow. It's the totality of it. Because if I'm going to play a hypothetical, if the defense wasn't so bad, Joe Burrow wouldn't even have to drop back that many times. Did y'all see how many times Chase Brown had easy running lanes? If that game was lower score, Chase Brown would have had 200 all-purpose yards. So that's the bigger issue, is like the defense, the totality of everything like that is the issue. But Joe Burrow's covering flaws. And if your game is close enough to win, what are you going to do? What are you looking at? Are you just going to blame the defense? Are you going to, if we would have lost the Giants game, are we blaming the defense? Right. You can't just blame. You got to look at every single play, and you can't skip a play. And I didn't do that for Mike Hilton. I didn't do that. T. Higgins had 2 costly drops, I thought, in this game today. Yep. I'm not skipping that. Nobody should be over. And to me, that's a makings of a bad locker room. If they're acting like that or they're operating like that and they're only looking at certain players like Von Bell early in the season, it's no different, bro. Like, you have to be able to perform and close out and go win games. And if you're the highest paid and you got to do all these different things like within the confines of your offense, and you got the 2 top weapons and all these different things like that, you have to be able to say, in these moments, our offense needs to go win. You can't skip that.
I got a couple of things that I want to say that I think the Bengals should do before, and I do want to get to your point of what you would do to fix the defense. You said you had a controversial take, and I want to get to that too. But while you're here, if you guys could do us a favor, give this video a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel so you guys never miss when we go live or when we upload content. First, I think we should shut down Orlando Brown for the remainder of the season. Seeing him play out there on that knee was scary. He didn't seem comfortable at all. It didn't seem stable. Saw him on a play where he was pulling, and he just did not look like himself. Another thing I kept noticing was, obviously, it was pointed out by the broadcast team about him essentially jumping, and I think that speaks to his lack of confidence of the knee and probably trying to get a head start, which at points probably hurts the team a little more than it does help the teteam. So I think shutting down Orlando Brown for the season, if all season they talked about how Sam Hubbard was dealing with an injury, and he is dealing with an injury, and he was choosing to play through it. I would shut him down for the remainder of the season. See what you got. Some of these young guys. I think Geno Stone should be asked to stay home. Respectfully, I don't know what that guy's doing out there. I've never seen a guy miss more tackles. I'm confident right now Zim could go out there and put on a better performance than what Geno Stone is being paid to do. It was horrid. It was a putrid performance. Bengals would do what you got to do, pay out the remainder of his salary the rest of this year. They need to pull a Eddie Lacy or a what's the running back that they a couple of years ago that the Raiders paid to stay home and not play football anymore. I forgot what his name was. First round. Maybe Trent Richardson. Trent Richardson. He was paid to stay home. I think Geno Stone needs to get paid to stay home. I'd like to, and I'm not trying to be a dick when I'm just being honest right now. You paid this guy to come in here, be starting free safety. His tape looked good with Baltimore. This guy can't make a tackle to save his life. One-on-one tackles. Abysmal, horrible angles. The list goes on over and over and over again. And of course, we got those Twitter experts out there who made comments, and they were saying, well, Geno Stone wasn't his assignment there. And it wasn't just that play. It was several plays of Geno Stone that we've seen literally all year that have led to this performance, which is why I have this sentiment. And I've never come out and said this, but the Bengals should not play Geno Stone the rest of the year, in my honest opinion. I think you need to get to a point where me and Zim said weeks ago, you need to see what you got in some of these young players. Play guys like Tyson Anderson, keep playing guys like Jordan Battle. Let's see what they have. Let's play some of these edge rushers. I'd like to see what a guy like Cedric Johnson might have as well. You can still play your guys like obviously Trey Hendrickson, who has the opportunity to lead the league in sacks this year and all this good stuff. And it's all great things that it's all great things you want to see from some of these players like Jermaine Burton. He showed a lot of promise today in the return game. Maybe you get that guy on the field a little bit more.
Why do we wait week 13? Dude's averaging 30-something yards in every single return. And why do we wait week 13 to give him full responsibilities on kick returns? That's coaching.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why we get down to the situational coaching. But honestly, Zim, and I'm going to say this to you, man. I think if you don't see those changes, that this is a sign of a coaching staff that is trying to save their ass to me. I think that the only
what is there to save?
But you see what I'm saying? They're going to put out the
it's over,
guys. It's over.
It's over.
But they're trying to put wins on the board to see if they could potentially salvage their jobs, if you will. That's the only reason why you wouldn't play these young players, in my opinion. That's the only reason why you would. But I do want to get to your point. You talked about making some wholesale changes on the defense that you said they're a little bit controversial. Let's get to them.
I'm going to say this. I don't think that there's any way. Yeah, they're going to hate me for this. I don't think there's any way that this upcoming season you would be able to just immediately just switch on and then now you got a top 5 defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're at a crossroads with a lot of different players. You could literally now this is two different things. What is the Bengals' identity right now? They're a high power offense, or they want to be, right? To me, I know a lot of people saying that the offense is amazing and top 5. I think they're really good. I think that they struggle in spots that they need to go in and win games. So I don't consider them a top 5.
Mm-hmm.
I consider them like a top 8 offense. Like they're like you could find metrics for the Cardinals having very similar. Like I think that the Bengals are really good. But I'm not in the business, and we've learned this before. I'm not in the business of getting rid of young top players on our team, like T. Higgins, right? The opposition is going to want. Dude, I don't know if people have been watching this. The number 1 free agent that they're saying in all of football, not just wide receiver, not just offense, in all of football on ESPN and Sports Illustrated currently right now is T. Higgins, right? Mm-hmm. Bengals fans are the only people in the world that think that he doesn't carry like this absurd amount of value, right? This is the most important. The reason why I bring this up, because if they were to let him walk, it would be the biggest mistake in franchise history. Anything that y'all can show me from the 80s, 70s, 60s, I don't give a damn. If you let T. Higgins walk for nothing, it will be the biggest mistake in franchise history. There's only 2 different ways that this can go. You need to tag and trade this dude for a first-round pick. Why? Because the wide receiver pool that's coming up is very weak. I guess we're going to get into that coming up pretty much. Like guys that I like Luther Burden, I don't know if they'll ever be T. Higgins, and that's a top 10 level wide receiver, right? Mm-hmm. There are going to be teams that are going to have picks in the 20s and be saying, is there a better option than T. Higgins? And I don't think so, right? And so I feel like the tag and trade is very important for trying to get whatever you want next season to happen. If you don't get that, I think that I will make if the Bengals gave me this option, and this is a whole rebuild. If they said we move on from Kappa, Geno Stone, Sheldon Rankins, we can go get the T. Higgins money right there, right? The odd man that I think will be still looking out that everybody's kind of forgetting about is Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson also asked for a trade. He's about to be 31 years old. I think that right now you're at a crossroads. You could hang on to Trey Hendrickson, try to piecemeal the rest of the defense and get them together, and then you come out there. Not to say Trey Hendrickson is one of my favorite players. I think he's like the 3rd or 4th best player on the team. If I were the Bengals, I would re-sign T. Higgins at 25 years old. I know that people are like, well, he's not going to play. When he plays, the offense is damn near unstoppable. And to me, you wouldn't lose. You wouldn't go down. Like, everybody's trying to figure out different ways to try to get the offense like back. And they're like, well, you know, we just need to get a whole new offensive line. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, you can maybe sign like a Trey Smith or something in the offseason. You can go sign like a good guard or whatever and then try to put it together. You have one more year left on Trey Hendrickson's deal. If they gave me an option of who I was keeping, it's super controversial right now, and I think people will see it later. If you were to let him walk and say he goes to like the Bills, the Chiefs, any of them top teams, your life will be hell. You will watch TV every single Monday night, just like they've been doing Joe Mixon, and you will watch T. Higgins go crazy with Justin Herbert and a team that has lots of money go crazy. And he could have 80 yards and a touchdown. Every person on TV that's trained to hate the Bengals, they would tell you about T. Higgins every day, all that, whatever, right? Trey Hendrickson, in contrast, did ask for a trade as well. He's getting older. You could get a second-round pick, I think, for Trey Hendrickson, maybe even more. Who knows? The reason why I say that is because if you're going to revamp the whole defense, I think right now it's all set up so that Trey Hendrickson could go get his. But in these big games, it's a formula that's not really working. Every time that we go against the Ravens, Steelers, run me those stats. Like, run me the numbers or whatever, right? And like I said, Trey's one of my favorite players. But if you let him get to 32 years old, or you get in a situation where he's about to walk, he's going to be gone. And you're going to have nothing to show for it because nobody's going to tag. You wouldn't have a tag and trade opportunity for him. You do have that type of leverage, and you do have that pull with a 25-year-old T. Higgins. And I just laid out the money for the 3 players that they could go and whatever. The difference is I think you can get a second-round pick for him and revamp the whole defensive line. I would throw three brand new trench players, including Miles Murphy, as like a rotational piece. You had 3 brand new trench players. It might be the second round, third round, whatever, and a free agent guy. And I will revamp the whole entire defensive line. Sheldon Rankins is gone, maybe BJ Hill, whatever. I would do that. But if you wait and you have another average or below average season and Trey Hendrickson, it's the same thing as Jesse Bates. It's the same thing as all these other guys. If you let a 31, 32-year-old play out the last year of his contract, you won't have the opportunity to tag and trade. I think they're at a crossroads where they have to get something for him. And I know that that's going to be super controversial, and we're going to be talking about it all off season. I just don't see the path of keeping him and thinking that it's going to spark your like, I don't see it. Like, I don't know.
So it's not controversial. I mean, it might be, but that would involve the organization philosophically changing and operating as a first-class organization and realizing, hey, let's trade a guy. Let's trade this guy, and let's see if we can actually get a pick of value. And that's just something. Again, this speaks to me saying they have to actually want to operate like a operating franchise. They have to. That's what that would take. All the ideas you gave make sense. I think most young, innovative GMs, front offices would think that way. For some reason, the Bengals have this hard way of change. They're very hard pressed to change, and so like, would they do that? It's a great idea. It makes sense. These are reasonable things that we are saying. Like, to me, there are quick fixes this team can make right now that make money sense, that could help the window, so to speak. And that involves moving on from Sheldon Rankins. That involves moving on from Geno Stones. Right? That those are realistic moves that need to happen. Now you've basically, by the way, you also claimed throughout the offseason, we need a left guard. We need a starting left guard. That is what you said, because you moved off of your guy, Cordell Volson, who you stood behind all this time.
Yep.
You basically identified him as a problem. You identified the safety room as a problem to a degree. You've identified the cornerback room as a problem. Doing some of these moves that Zim has presented opens up a lot of possibilities for you. Danny, I want to get you in on the conversation.
Yeah, I think, and it's fascinating conversation. I think my first question, I guess, is for everybody. Trey, does he need an extension this year to play? Because I see some people in the comments saying, hey, he's not going to play without an extension. What do you think in this question for both of you guys, for Trey Hendrickson, heading into next year, does he need an extension? And if not, do you have to trade him? And do you think he would hold out?
He would need a pay raise of some sort to make it, like, he's vastly underpaid. And I don't think this offseason will go like what people wanted to go like with them. I think everybody's thinking like, oh yeah, Trey, I mean, nah, not this time. Yeah. 1 year left on that deal, 31 years old. Dude gets hurt or something like that, he would hit the free agent market and be like, I don't know, y'all can name me like an aging rusher, like I don't know, like Floyd, Leonard Floyd or somebody like that, or of that caliber. Nobody would be looking at him. And mind you, he's not an elite run defender. So you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I think this is the last bit of value that you will have. Like, get his sack numbers up, get him crazy, whatever. I think the Bengals have shown through time that they're not about extending older players. Yeah. I don't think he would play on 1 year left on the contract.
This is going to force the Bengals' hand.
Yes.
Because he's the one older player that's playing elite. So you have to ask yourself, okay, we don't want to play older players. Because listen, I'm a fan of paying elite pass rushers personally. Because I've seen guys get up to 34 and still produce in the pass rush department. The Bengals have proven that's not something they want to do. So if you know you're not going to extend a guy like Trey Hendrickson, what does that look like? Does that involve putting his name out there on the trade block? Will you actually entertain reasonable offers? Don't come at them if a team calls you and asks for 2 first-round picks. That's not realistic. If a team calls and gives you a high-value second round and a third pick, that's something that will allow you to play ball. First-round pick makes sense as well if it's reasonable, if it makes sense. But again, there's playing ball to actually try and get better, and then there's playing ball to try to fleece a situation. And for me, the Bengals have to be realistic with themselves if we're actually talking about wheeling and dealing some of these guys. Sam Hubbard should be a cap casualty.
Yes.
He's a guy that gets cut.
I'll tell you, Sam Hubbard, somebody said Trey Hendrickson has outperformed us. Everybody talks to me about Sam Hubbard being the Ohio kid and all that other stuff like that. Sam Hubbard should take the cheapest Bengals discount, like the same way that they asked Joe Mixon to take a pay cut or whatever. Sure. It should be $2 million, like a $4 million contract that's incentivized. And he might make $2 million or whatever. He's probably got $6 to $8 million more than what he should this season that he's playing in right now, making $10 million with a 0% pressure rate. Now you might say, well, Zen, why would you even want to keep him? I respect the leadership. I respect what he's done. I think you could still have him in rundowns, whatever, and he will be the bottom of a rotation defensive line guy. The same way that people use Joe Mixon as this polarizing force of he should take a pay cut for every single day. Everybody should be saying that. I think it would be a great way to get Sam Hubbard for because think about it. If you move on from Sam Hubbard, you now got to go find another solid run defender. It's not that hard, but how about a guy that you could really trust on? And then we're talking about a full overhaul. Mm-hmm. You would need some bit of leadership there. I would keep him and tell him, hey, bro, you need to restructure and take a massive pay cut where you're making $2.2 million, and we'll incentivize it if you get 8 sacks where he's not even going to get it. I would do something like that and let him take the backseat. I think he's about 2 years from being out the league for real.
Yeah. And I think just going back to that conversation, this is this off season is going to be there's a lot of real conversation. Trey Hendrickson, T. Higgins. I think the T. Higgins conversation, this is where my mind goes. I think you are at a crossroads to where the organization has to change the stripes and entertain a tag and trade. My philosophy, and this is just for me, I struggle to see the money you're going to shell. And this is just how I view it. I'm for paying T. Higgins in a sense, but it's hard for me to justify how the rest of this team's going to look if T's making 25 and Jamar's making 35. And that's the part where I struggle to see how the defense, and I guess this is part of the conversation that we can have, is I see other teams that have star quarterbacks. I've seen the Tom Brady-led offense. I've seen Patrick Mahomes. I've seen the Josh Allen. Very rarely do we see a superstar quarterback with 2 extremely high-paid wide receivers. And I think that's the part from a front office standpoint that, and I'm curious, what would be your solution? Let's say you do pay T. Higgins, right?
Yeah.
what's your solution to every other issue? Because you're shelling out $60 million for 2 wide receivers.
I don't need no more draft capital towards pretty much any skill positions. Running backs, I can get in the draft in the low level. I think we found it in Khalil Herbert as a 1-2. I like what they give him to him early in the game. You get a confident, like we're not even looking at skill positions if you just sign T. Higgins, right?
Yep.
The tight end conversation, I don't even really care about that. I'm going back to 11 personnel and I'm running 12 when I get a block. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, I'm taking 3 positions off the board altogether, right? Then I go to the offensive line. I'm not trusting any of those dudes to block for Joe Burrow anyway. So the one big signing that the Bengals would have outside of T. Higgins and Jamar Chase would be like a guard.
Yeah.
And then you figure out, like, in the draft, you draft a guy to go battle with Kappa, right? Or you move on from Kappa, whatever, right? The draft, every little low-level free agent, anybody that you could think of will all be defense. It will be a brand new defense with like 8 new starters, bro. Like the whole defense, every single thing about the team would be that. The only reason why I said that is because a top 3 talent on your team, 25 years old.
Mm-hmm.
If I go trade that, even in its best opportunity, and I go get a first-round pick for it, with the Bengals drafting history and guys like Myles Murphy that they're not even playing, that it's not tangible to me. Like, I just don't like the same person that's saying, hey, look, how could you keep T, right? I'm not saying that's you. How could you keep T is the same person that will be the first one to tell you that the Bengals don't draft well. So even if I got in the best case scenario, I got a first round pick. There's people here probably say, bro, you're not even getting a first. In the best case scenario, I get a first round pick. Do y'all think that I'm trusting them to go take the first round pick and hit on a T. Higgins level? I don't think so. To me, I don't think so. If it was a wide receiver, sure, but as you pointed out, there's so many other problems. I can't even take a wide receiver first round. I need a cornerback or D tackle first round. To me, that's non-negotiable.
And that's where I think is the frustrating part about this team versus other teams, because philosophically, like, if you can, a first round pick is extremely rare capital, and you should be confident that you can hit on these guys. So I'm with you. I think that, me personally, like how I look at it, I think it's hard right now to look at Myles Murphy, Dax Hill, and see the lack of just all around production that you've gotten from those dudes and say, all right, well, we can replace, T. Higgins. So for me, I think that's where the conversation, first off, I'm with you guys, the Sam Hubbard, the Sheldon Rankins, those guys, the money you have to find money elsewhere. It really, my final thoughts on this whole defense and the talent, I think you just need an infusion of athleticism and talent on defense. And I think that's when, if we're talking draft, that's why I'm excited next couple months to be talking about the draft. I'm looking round 1. Hey, maybe if a star offensive lineman falls in your lap, maybe you go there. But if not, we're talking you need an athletic pass rusher or a guy interior defensive line.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the pure talent on the Bengals team, you got Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Orlando Brown, and Marius Mims. Those are 5 premier talents in the NFL. Potentially, hopefully Mims can get there. On defense, you got one, and that's Trey Hendrickson. And I think from a roster construction standpoint, that's where the Bengals this offseason, if you don't add an infusion of talent to the defense, we're going to see the same shit next year with the next defense coordinator if they choose to move on from Lou Anarumo.
Here's sorry to cut you off, Dan. Here's one thing I want to just point out to people, because I don't want to get lost in the intricacies of coaching and things that we could do. Yeah. Here's one thing I just want to point out to you, and these are facts. For all Bengals fans listening out there, for Daniel, for Zim, for myself, 5 scouts. Let's start here. 5 scouts not open to trading their own talent. Coach who is poor in situational coaching situations. Ownership who doesn't guarantee deals after year 1. Nobody with the general manager, true general manager title. You have a director of player personnel. These are facts that I want us to get to make sure. So for me, for things to look different in Cincinnati, that 5 scouts needs to increase by, let's say, another 5. Yep. We need to get to at least 10. And even then, you're still probably small. But at least you're dealing with 10 more scouts than what you had before. But 5 scouts. By the way, some of those 5 scouts are people people's families members, right, that have been a part of the process that the organization is close with. If they want to be taken serious, if they want to really change the guard here in Cincinnati, I think organizationally, structurally speaking, right, I think things need to change. Hear me out. We often talk about how elite quarterback play can overcome bad coaching, right? We always talk about it, right, Daniel?
Yeah.
Elite quarterback play can overcome bad coaching. Well, elite coaching can overcome inept front office. You don't have elite coaching right now. You have a coach who's poor in situational management, right? So if hiring a true general manager and changing organizationally is not on the cards, you need to move on from your head coach. That's a fact, right? I think we're all in agreement with that. If you don't have a coach that can win with the talent that he's been given, and they're not willing to change structurally from the organizational standpoint, you need to move on from the coach. That is a fact. We can hope, we can throw out all these ideas, and Zim is 100% correct. My fear is they're not willing to do that. But in order to operate like a modern franchise, a first class organization, you probably should hire somebody at the general manager role. And you don't even need to move on from Duke Tobin. You already have Duke Tobin in a role called director of player personnel. It's easy to slot someone into the general manager role and say it's a collaborative effort that he works with Duke and his staff. Let Duke focus fully on scouting with his staff, the whole 9 yards, if you don't want to move on from the guy. Hire somebody with the actual chops. Promote Trey Brown, or whatever the dude's name is, to general manager, or someone. Get someone in there. If you do not have elite coaching, you're going to have a hard time winning in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
You're going to have a hard time winning in Cincinnati because the front office plays ball with the way that they deal. Unless the organization is saying, hey, we're not going to just front load our contracts, in year one. We're willing to spread it over time. You're playing behind the 8 ball. That was the whole hang up when we got Trey Hendrickson. They lowballed him. And then he had another offer on the table where he could have went for multiple years. And the Bengals had to come back with even a bigger offer in year one that made him say yes. But his money was still tied into year one. It was just a bigger amount. And now he's at a point where saying, shit, I signed that deal and I'm still underpaid. I'm still not getting, the money that I think I deserve. And I'm playing at the same level as a TJ Watt and better. I'm playing at the level of a Myles Garrett. I'm playing at the level of some of these elite pass rushers, but my money isn't showing up. It's not showing up in the bank for me.
But don't you feel like the Bengals aren't going to pay him? Like, say Trey's agent, I'm just speculating. Mm-hmm. Say he said, I want a 2-year, 3-year extension. You think the Bengals would give him that?
No.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm Trey Hendrickson, why would I play? Like, Bengals fans, like somebody in the comments said, we got to talk realistic. Let's talk realistic. Yeah. I'm 31 years old. I know I can go get paid from somebody else. You might say that, I think the Bengals ain't like let's keep it real. I don't think the Bengals going to pay a 31-year-old guy an extension. And you think a 31-year-old dude playing on the last year of his contract, facing possibly maybe getting hurt. See, T. Higgins playing on a franchise tag isn't as crazy to me. 25 years old, I
saw them give it to AJ when AJ was getting hurt. Yeah, I've seen them do it.
And then wide receiver market is very different than what the edge market used to be crazy years ago. It's kind of flatlined a little bit, right? But the wide receiver market, think about what I just told y'all on this show. T. Higgins, even missing 5 games, is unequivocally on any. Go Google it right now if y'all don't believe me. You might be a disgruntled Bengal fan watching this show and say, we can move on from T. Higgins. Cool. I'm not here to dispute that. Go Google this right now. Number 1 free agent in all of football. T. Higgins' name gonna pop up on ESPN, Sports Illustrated, 33rd team, all of them. They all are saying he's the number 1 guy. And the reason why is because if he were to get hurt at 25 years old, nobody gives a shit. They're still paying him. If you're Trey Hendrickson and you get hurt at 31, it's different. It's very different. And because of it, there are teams that might say, I can get myself over the hump. There is a Buffalo Bills team out there that's like looking for their version of Von Miller that says, I'll pay him. I'll pay the 3 years. Y'all don't want to do it? I'll send a pick for him right now because we don't like none of the edge rushers in the draft. For a team, like I said, the Bengals aren't going to pay this dude. And the reason why I brought that up, because I know he, like a lot of players, he's a fan favorite. And he's one of my favorite players on the team too. Mm-hmm. But if you walk into the season, 2025 season with Trey Hendrickson on a one-year thing, it's the same conversation as Jesse Bates. It's the same conversation, hypothetically, as T. Higgins or whatever. You're saying we're going all in for the gusto, and we believe we can win a Super Bowl this year. And I don't believe that the Bengals are in that opportunity. They're not in that space to even have to even talk that. See, you could do that with Jesse Bates. In hindsight, everybody's like, why are you moving from Jesse Bates? Bro, they got a bargain bin version of labor price-wise in his last year of a contract and say, hey, look, let's take one chance to go get a Super Bowl. And they almost did it. So, like, in hindsight, everybody's like, why you ain't re-sign him? Yes, after all the Dax Hills and first-round talents didn't work, sure, you could say that. At the time, it wasn't the worst thing in the world. But now you're looking at a guy that's saying, you're not saying, let's go take Trey Hendrickson and go one more year, go win for the Gipper and go win to a Super Bowl. You're not in that. You're about to have a full restructure of damn near your whole team. And I just don't see, if you can't go get a first-round talent for T. Higgins, I'm telling you, bro, it sounds crazy to people because he missed games. I can run off a list for you right now of every wide receiver that's in the National Football League that missed just as many or if more. I wrote it all down. These teams do not care. Right. The only people that care are the Bengal fans that you wanted him to play this upcoming season because you thought it would help your team. The teams that are photoshopping T. Higgins online all day, they do not care. Go ask one of them. I was at a Thanksgiving party, and these people were Commanders fans, Cowboy fans. They're all talking about T. Higgins is going to play for their team. You think any of them brought up the fact that T. Higgins missed 5 games this season? No, they don't give a shit. That is the biggest market in football right now, and this dude is the #1 free agent. You better cash out the value and go get a first-round pick in a tag and trade, or re-sign him, or it's going to be a cup. I'm telling you, this is the most passionate I've been about anything in the history. More passionate than our Jamar Chase, Penei Sewell thing. If the Bengals let this dude walk, it will be the biggest mistake in franchise history. Even if they get a first-round pick for him, I still would be skeptical sitting there like, what team did he go to? Like, you want him, Justin Herbert, throwing 400 yards every Monday night, every Sunday night football to T. Higgins? You're not thinking about this. You're thinking about the games that you missed, and you're mad at him. Mm-hmm. He's the #1 player in free agency. If they let him walk, it will be catastrophic. Catastrophic.
And let me just say, I think, and this is the part for me, that's the frustrating part. Because if I'm an organization, we've seen teams let players walk, or even, let's say, have traded players. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Traded the cornerback to the Titans. If your plan is to let him walk, you better be doing everything in your power right now. Jermaine, go get them damn snaps. Because we talked about this. Like, Jermaine, I'm confident in coming out of the draft. I thought that dude could be a starting caliber wide receiver too. So if that's your plan to let him walk, you need to be doing everything this year. Play Jermaine Burton. Play Yoshi Voss. You need to be super confident that you got a backup plan, because if I'm a front office, like, you can look at yourself, put yourself in the owner, in the GM shoes. If you're letting this dude walk, how are you going to lessen the impact? And I promise you, lessening the impact is not by letting Jermaine Burton, your 3rd-round pick, sit on the bench. And that's where it really comes down. And that's the frustrating part when you look at these other teams, the Buffalo Bills, who have, you know, a plethora of young guys on the rookie contract. Yes. Greg Rousseau, AJ Epinesa, these dudes on the rookie contract, and they are balling. You look at other teams. You can look at the Baltimore Ravens offensive lineman Tyler Lindenbaum. He's on a rookie contract. The talented teams and the teams that stay at the top, look at the Detroit Lions, albeit they're only there and they've just gotten there, but they've got dudes balling on the rookie contract. Brian Branch, Jahmyr Gibbs. They've got a bunch of these dudes on rookie contracts balling out. And when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl, they had dudes on their rookie contracts balling out. Logan Wilson playing a huge role that year. T. Higgins playing a huge role. as an organization, you have to have dudes on the rookie contract. And that's where Miles Murphy, this whole Trey Hendrickson conversation we're having wouldn't be as bad of a conversation if we truly saw Miles Murphy getting snaps and if you hit on these draft picks. So one of the ways that the Bengals can correct this, and it sounds simple, but hit on your draft picks, and Malik, like you touched on, I think
You got to play
5 scouts. I really think that there's a fundamental issue with that.
Can I say that Jesse Bates too? Somebody said this too. They said that they let Jesse Bates walk. You have to understand the climate. We can have a whole nother show talking salary cap. We could talk all these different things. I'm not here to miseducate anyone. The market for safeties and the market for wide receivers are very different. You can't execute a tag and trade for the best safety in football. How do you know? Look at Justin Simmons this all season. That's regarded as one of the best safeties in the National Football League. He was let just go. There are safeties like Xavier McKinney that were just up there on the open market. So imagine the Bengals trying to operate a tag and trade for a guy. No team is they're gonna say, kiss off, like we don't care. Like we're just gonna go get another safety. Like it's not the same market. You have to, like I said, go Google go look at the wide receivers that got traded. Amari Cooper, Diggs, all these dudes, they're all 30-something years old, and they're nowhere near T. Higgins level.
Yep. And
they all got traded for 3rd and 2nd round picks. Y'all think that a guy with multiple 1,000-yard seasons isn't worth a 1st-round pick? Then I'm telling y'all, I'm not telling you. ESPN, Sports Illustrated, everybody's telling. I'm telling this, and I'm saying this on this show because whether you keep T. Higgins or not, everybody should be putting pressure on them to get a 1st-round pick. I'm telling you, it's going to be bad if they don't get this right, bro. There is no scenario that this guy can walk, bro.
Yeah, I'll say this before we head out of here. Just want to make sure I say this so you guys didn't catch me before. 5 scouts, no general manager, a coach who is poor in situational coaching and consistently gets outcoached, no general manager, not open and trading their own, and you don't have a leader as a head coach either. The fact of the matter is you have a quarterback who is more real about the climate of the team than the head coach. And I'm not expecting Zach Taylor to go out there and flip his shit and say players suck or this, that, and a third, but maybe showing a little bit more fire. Maybe showing a little bit more emotion. Today was one of the shorter Zach Taylor post-game press conferences I've ever seen, to where I felt like the media didn't even know what to ask him anymore. It was the same message, lean on each other. We have a lot of great guys in that locker room that this means something to them. And that was the overall message. Here's one thing we cannot lose sight of. The expectation for this year was that the Bengals are going to end up in New Orleans. That was the expectation. The results are the Bengals are 4-8 and virtually out of the playoff picture. Morale is down. That's the facts. So ask yourself, can this team move forward with Zach Taylor as the head coach? Especially if they're unwilling to make changes organizationally from a front office perspective. Do you think Zach in year 7, right? Because that's what it will be next year. Wow, shit. Do you think Zach can instantly become this football savant who can understand that situational coaching matters? Do you think he can get guys like Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow to believe in him? It doesn't really take, well, let me say this. It takes a special coach to have success in Cincinnati, is what I'll say. And the type of leader that a Joe Burrow needs, that a Jamar Chase would need, is someone that would hold them accountable. Say what you want about Ed Orgeron at LSU. He called those boys out. He said what it was. If things were bad, he would say it. If Joe Burrow played like shit, he would say, Joe played horrible. No questions asked. The day and age of this coach speak and president of a team and, essentially you're saying all the nice things. We believe in this team. We believe that at some point, the message is going to wear thin. Let me ask everybody in the comment section. Let me ask everybody in the comment section this, and I want y'all to comment. Do y'all think the players believe in Zach Taylor? Do y'all believe in Zach Taylor? Better yet, do you think that after this offseason, the draft, the free agency, do you believe that Zach Taylor, after the results, let's say they change defensive coordinators, do you believe that Zach Taylor and whoever the next defensive coordinator is going to be could come in and win a Super Bowl next year? Because that's what the expectation is with the team. I'm going to give you a second. Do me a favor. Comment that in the group chat. Let me know yes or no, because here's what I want. Here's what I want. Okay. So here's what I'm getting a lot of. No, hell no. No. I know the Bengals pay attention to this.
All right.
Read the room.
Right.
Listen to your fan base. Right. And
listen to your quarterback.
Listen to your quarterback. Listen to how your quarterback is speaking. And then what I would personally do which is what some teams around the league do, I would talk to some of your players and I would ask them their feelings on this team. Do they feel this is salvageable? Do they think, basically you want to see, do they have a vote of confidence in Zach Taylor? Listen, I said this before. This game, this loss right here, right? This loss right here has the ability to make this season go downward and fast. The vibes in Cincinnati are down right now. And I just want the Bengals organization to read the room. Don't think about, don't think about your Zach Taylor being a great guy and how much he loves the Midwest and, all this stuff like that. UC moved on from him. I want y'all to actually read the room. Listen to your fan base. And then you have to ask yourselves, the amount of empty seats that were inside of Paycor today, this is just the start. You had the chance to save this foolery. You had the chance to fix this foolery. You had the chance to add a coach that could probably get asses in seats, get the fan base back on board, earn the respect of the players, and more importantly, bring a championship culture to Cincinnati. I won't say names because I don't want to trigger people. But what I will say is, read the room. Zim.
I want to ask you and Daniel this. This is the frustrating thing about this. I think some people, there's so many different, as I read different comments and I engage with people all day on the app, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you all this. Do you feel like there is a coach that could win a Super Bowl with Joe Burrow in the Cincinnati front office as it stands right now? Because I see the comments where people are just like, I'm done with him. They'll never do it. Do you think that there's a coach that can win a Super Bowl?
There's only one coach for the job. There's no there. I don't care about these upcoming offensive coordinators and all this kind of stuff like that, because every new offensive minded coach that people are talking about bringing in are going to get a reality check and they're going to be wide eyed and bright and buttoned up and ready to come to Cincinnati. And they're going to say all the right things about how we're going to bring a championship culture to Cincinnati. And then they're going to look down the hallway and it'd be Duke Tobin in Bengals front office and get a smack in the face and say, yeah, you're wide-eyed. You want to win. You came from Detroit. You came from wherever. And this is your ceiling under us. There's a coach that if they came in here, well, guess what? Now, the other end is looking down at that coach, looking down at that office, and they're saying, this guy has changed an organization,
right,
has helped cultivate a winning culture. Jim, I think I know where you're going, but continue.
I don't know. I'm going somewhere. This is I'm just posing this, and people feel free to make sure you write this in the comment section. We appreciate you guys and girls checking out the show. please make sure you subscribe. Make sure you comment in the comment section. Is there a coach that could do it, right? And you know the guy that you kind of been spearheading the Belichick moment. The reason why, and somebody wrote a real good comment. They said that the Bengals came literally like a play or 3 plays away from winning a Super Bowl with Zach Taylor, right? There are different things in history that I could look at that would you could go Tony Dungy and John Gruden, right? Like at some point it's over, then you need a coach that can get you over the hump, right? The one thing that makes me struggle is even if the coach is in place, the front, like I think somebody like Belichick is the only person that could probably solve what I think is because he would demand more scout. He would demand more things than reason. And I think the people saying Joe Brady, offensive mind, Ben Johnson, all those are really cool. And I think that they will win too. But it doesn't change some of the things that I think that Bill Belichick would ask for that are within reason. Very, very critical that I say that part. He would ask for things like more scouting that you've been talking about the whole entire show. He would get into different principles and different things that can get you over the hump. Those are things that don't really cost money, right? You know what I mean? Like his principles, daily routines, hiring of different, whether it's conditioning, different small things that I do think that the Bengals would do. I don't think he wants control over anything. He's older now. I don't think he wants control. I think he wants wins, right? The one thing that does make me it does take away my faith a little bit is this. I don't think in any scenario, we're not the Eagles front office. We don't have a Howie Roseman unless what's his name? The dude from Amazon or somebody comes and buys the Bengals or something like that. I don't know. But as it stands, the dangers, and this goes into my conversation earlier that Daniel was kind of opening up a little bit. If we know that this front office isn't going to give us a perfect offensive line, right? So the person that was critical on me earlier in the show talking about the offense not being able to close when the opportunity is right there. Like on my wall in my room, I have a big thing that says Carpe Diem right there because I'm constantly seizing the moment. Malik called me up and said, hey, look, you want to do this? I'm seizing the moment. I ain't hesitate. I said, let me think about it for a day or two. I came right back. Hey, look, let's do this, right? Mm-hmm. That's how I live. If you're telling me, even with a Bill Belichick, this I want people to think about. If you're a person that says you don't blame the offense for anything, you know that the front, even with a Bill Belichick, we might have better coaching, you might have better everything, you might have a better defense. If you're telling me in games where it's within reach, which is it's going to be the same thing when you get a Bill Belichick. I don't think Bill Belichick is going to win every single one. You know what I mean? If the opportunity presents itself, if you're going to come back and then say, well, Joe's had a good season, offense is top 5, it's not on them. If you're going to do that, you're never going to win a Super Bowl like that in my mind, because even though Bill could be there, you're not going to have a perfect offensive line. So anytime you get a drop back and you get a sack and it's late in the game, you're going to deviate and say, what will get the Bengals over the top? To me, that's why it always goes back to the guy, Joe. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that I'm blaming him, but when he wins, I'm the biggest cheerleader that the app has ever seen. YouTube, Twitter, anything. Nobody's ever seen a Joe Burrow fucking, what do they call me, a fanboy or whatever. There's nobody that's going to be the biggest champion of his praises when he does anything well. If the moment is right there, even with a better defense, even with the Bill Belichick, there are going to be moments, even with all that being said, and it's going to be 27-27. It's going to be 27-21. Even with that, you're going to be then, after all of that is all done, after you done fixed the offensive line, you done Andy Dalton your whole situation, you got a brand new interior offensive line, you got a way better defense. You're going to come back to 27-21. You're going to come back to 27-27. You're going to come back to a minute 38. Like, no matter what, even the Chiefs face that every single week. And when you don't win those games, you better be prepared to talk about every single entity every single piece on the field, because the perfect scenario in your mind doesn't really exist. It doesn't. Life is like that. If there's a window and the opportunity has to be there, just like the 2021 Super Bowl, you got to jump through the window. And if you don't jump through it, you'll never get through. That window closed on that season when Joe Burrow hurt his wrist. Now that you're trying to open up a brand new window, this perfect opportunity, because you told us in the comment section the whole show that the front office isn't going to get you the best offensive line. They are going to trade and go get the first round pick. So what are you doing here? Is my next question. Like, what are you doing? Like, if you know that they're never going to win because there's never going to be a perfect offensive line, and then if the game is tied up, we just, it doesn't matter what happened in those games. We got a top 5 offense. Who cares? Where are you at? Like, tell me in the comment section. You could try to paraphrase and change that to Zim's blaming Joe Burrow. At the end of the day, I got the highest paid quarterback, and I think he's the best player in the world. If I got a tied up game and the defense plays like dog shit, I expected this defense to play like dog shit because I know that they were dog shit before the game started. I think that the offensive line is average at best. You're never going to have this perfect scenario, and that's my point. Is like, what do you want us to do? Like, if you're a Bengal fan and you want to do you want to win a Super Bowl? What do you want to do? Like, what's your plan? Tell me in the comment section of this video.
I love that. You know, I want to address something real quick. So there's, I just said we were going to get out of here. I'll be quick. When, you know, I think that the coaching stuff isn't rocket science, to be honest with you. For me, people forget when Joe Philbin's staff got fired and they hired an interim offensive coordinator, they hired an interim defensive coordinator. The interim offensive coordinator, his name was Zach Taylor. The interim defensive coordinator, his name was Lou Anarumo. The interim head coach, his name was Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell did a great job. He got fired at the end, well, along with the rest of the staff, and they brought in a new regime. Everybody was saying that guy is going to make a great head coach. It took a long time. A long time. He had to go back and be a tight ends coach, a specialized coordinator and all this kind of stuff like that. But now he's a head coach with the Detroit Lions. And the same thing that people were saying about the guy almost 10 years ago rings true now. He's a really good head coach. So this thing shouldn't shock you. But there's this notion out there that Bill Belichick has drafted poorly. You know, there's one thing I can always say is that the Bengals, what's the one thing that we seem to not be able to draft right? Offensive linemen.
Offensive line, trenches all together.
Trenches, right? Linebackers, right? The whole 9 yards. You know, I don't believe the notion that Bill Belichick, if he were to come to a Cincinnati, he would want all this control. He gained that control over 20 plus years of being in New England and gaining that respect and winning multiple championships. For those of you that are out there that are saying, hey, I don't want him, I want a young offensive mind. There's no young offensive minded coach or young coach that's going to come in here that's going to gain the autonomy that Bill Belichick automatically is going to have with the front office. Another thing I'll say is that this front office operates very similar to how New England's front office operated. New England didn't partake in a bunch of trades. New England didn't go out there and splurge a bunch of ridiculous money, which is why Bill Belichick and the Bengals have always had a great relationship, and they always dealt with one another because they always were able to meet each other on a level. And, you know, Bill Belichick has a lot of respect for the front office, which he's been on record saying for Duke, for Mike, for the whole entire staff. But you pair him up with a quarterback, right? The one thing that hurt him was the quarterback position in Mac Jones. But one thing I want to say to y'all, for those out there that are saying, hey, Bill Belichick isn't a great coach, a lot of those names that y'all have been clamoring for the Bengals to sign through various free agencies, especially in the offensive line, Bill Belichick has been responsible for finding, for drafting. Remember the name Joe Thuney? Bill Belichick drafted that guy. Remember the name Shaq Mason? Bill Belichick drafted that guy. Do you remember a great pass rusher in New England, Rob Ninkovich? Mm-hmm. Bill Belichick drafted that guy. Do you remember? I can keep going. We can keep going with this thing. There was a really good center in New England who put together some amazing years. Name's David Andrews. Bill Belichick drafted that guy. We can keep going on guys, on talent that Bill Belichick has been able to find. I know it's a name that I probably shouldn't mention, the tight end position. Aaron Hernandez, Bill Belichick drafted that guy. Rob Gronkowski, Bill Belichick drafted that guy, knowing when to go out there and trade for talent that could help your team, like the Randy Mosses of the world. Bill Belichick did that. Bill Belichick was able to identify a linebacker that would truly help change the face of the Patriots defense in the name of Dante Hightower. Bill Belichick flipped a couple of picks, late rounders, and was able to go out there and draft Dante Hightower. Bill Belichick drafted the linebacker that's the Patriots head coach right now, Gerard Mayo. Bill Belichick went out there and drafted a potential future Hall of Famer that everybody said when he moved up in the draft to get in, Chandler Jones. What are you doing? Bill Belichick drafted that guy. So there's notion out there that Bill Belichick is just this terrible draft evaluator. Y'all looking at the first round picks. How many hits has this guy had in the middle rounds? How soon would Bill Belichick move off of players? And people would say, you move off that player way too early. Bill Belichick was able to fine-tune the talent of a wide receiver named Julian Edelman, who came into the league as a quarterback. He switched him over to wide receiver and said, that's where you're going to be. Bill Belichick is an evaluator of talent. They said that guy was too obsessed with winning. He knew what it took to win. So when I clamor for a guy, and Coach Bob G, you're saying, please stop, he's not coming here. What is with that mentality? You know what would want to make Bill Belichick come here? Joe Burrow. And believe it or not, shockingly enough, the Brown family. So much respect for the Brown family. So before we get on this,
don't you feel like Bill Belichick got a better chance than some of these hotshot names that they're saying?
Yes.
I feel like he will want less money.
You know, Ben Johnson is going to command like $10 million a year. He's being very picky with where he wants to go. Do y'all think listen, he's a first-time head coach. He'd be a first-time head coach. Do y'all think he's going to come in here and tell this front office what he wants and get everything that he likes?
Hell no.
That's not happening.
Hell no.
That I'm dealing with realistic expectation. We're going from offensive-minded coach, and people are trying to say, let's hire the next sexy offensive-minded coach. I want somebody in here that has a winning culture. I want somebody in here that has done it. I don't believe the notion, again, that Zach Taylor's job is super safe. I don't believe that. I'm just going to say Bill has been great at finding talent. Bill Belichick, Deion Branch. Bill Belichick, Wes Welker. He's an evaluator of talent. And not just offensively, but defensively. You're worried about Bill Belichick's age. Bill Belichick is not worried about Bill Belichick's age. Nobody's looking at Bill Belichick's age. Bill Belichick still wants to coach in the National Football League. The oldest coach in football just retired, and Pete Carroll. He had more energy than some of these other guys. Sometimes you want guys that know what they're doing. It's this new guard of everybody that's saying we want these new sexy young guys, and some of these young guys don't know what the fuck they're doing. But you get a guy in here. Imagine saying you don't want the greatest coach in modern era to come coach in Cincinnati. X's and O's, he beats Zach Taylor any day of the week. Imagine saying you don't want to coach with 6 Super Bowl rings to come to Cincinnati. Imagine thinking 6 years ago they even had a chance to grab a Bill Belichick. You say his drafts have been mid, but he's had a lot of hits. He's had a lot of hits. Again, I believe that he is a good fit for this team, for this moment. And a Bill Belichick hire does so much more for just the right here and now. It does so much more for the future, because the philosophical change that Bill Belichick would require would help whoever the next head coach that would come in 5 years from now, because they would have seen it work with a Bill Belichick. Just my thoughts. I just believe in my heart that he makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. And I hope that y'all do too. I want to thank y'all for tuning into another episode of the Sit Down with Malik Wright. Me and Zim going live, me and Daniel going live, breaking this whole game down. One thing I want y'all to take away from this is y'all deserve better. And I believe in shooting for the stars. I believe in shooting for a coach that could change the culture here in Cincinnati and not just be lip service. And y'all should have wanted to. And I'll say what I always say. Bill Belichick to Cincinnati would feed fucking families. It would. I believe it makes a lot of sense. Let us know down in the comment section what you guys think. Make sure you guys give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or when we upload content. Until next time, who dat?